Joining us on this fresh edition of the India Development Debate right here on ET Now, I'm Supriya Shrinate. It finally took 20 brave women, a heightened narrative, and 10 days for MJ Akbar to quit as India's Junior Minister for External Affairs. Accused of sexual harassment by multiple women, he has now decided to take on the legal battle against Supriya Shrinate in his personal capacity. He did thank the Prime Minister and the External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj for the opportunity they gave to serve his country. We at ET Now laud his ouster, but we question the silence of not just the Prime Minister, but a vibrant, vocal woman like Sushma Swaraj as well. Supriya Shrinate, against whom Akbar has slapped criminal defamation charges, reacted to this by saying this is vindication for many women, but the courts should give them justice too. So what took Akbar so long to resign? Is this the real victory for women who have traded some very serious charges against Akbar? Is this the moment of reckoning for the Me Too movement here in the country? Is this time that we get processes involved, and will the law now take its natural course? Joining us on this very special edition is a special panel right here. Mr. Yogendra Yadav, founder and national president of the Swaraj India political party, Mr. N. Ram, senior journalist, and Neerja Chaudhary, political commentator and columnist. Thank you very much, each one of you, for being with us. And I think this issue refused to die out of the headline for the right reasons. It was the heightened narrative. It was this clamor for ouster. But it did take 10 days, more than 20 women to come out and accuse him of sexual harassment, and a heightened public debate. What really changed according to you, Mr. Yadav? What do you make of the timing? Has he gone on his own? Has he been made to go? From Sunday to being completely brazen to now insisting that he will quit and fight this in his personal capacity. What changed?
We can only guess, so we don't know. But first of all, I think we must acknowledge this is a critical moment, almost historic. For all its limitations, something significant has happened. Limitations are that, as you point out, this didn't happen in the first instance. This is not a spontaneous reaction of the government. Clearly, the government has been forced. Clearly, they could see that this was simply untenable to continue with him and to save face in public. So clearly, it's the last reaction, not the first instance reaction. And yes, Mr. Akbar's letter shows not a trace of remorse, apology, or being contrite. In the letter, he says he's seeking justice. But for all these limitations, something very significant has happened. One of the most powerful, one of the worst offenders has been made to pay. And that for me is critical. The real question is, what now? Do we see this as a logical culmination, or do we see this as a beginning? I'd like to see this as a beginning, because Mr. Akbar is just the tip of the iceberg, because this movement needs to be taken forward. And allow me to say, not just under law. Law and legal recourse is only one of the things here. Something far more important is the public domain, which is where the Me Too movement has made a difference, and which is where I would like to see it expand and go forward. But for everything, my salute to those women who have taken personal courage, who took risk, came out, and it is their victory.
No, absolutely. It is the victory of the women who decided to come out with courage, with bravado, and tell their stories, even at the cost of being judged by the majority of our population. So I think on that count, it is absolute hats off to them. But Mr. Ram, did the government brazen it out by erroneously thinking that this is going to blow over? And I'm glad it did not. I'm very happy this did not blow over. I'm glad the media did not take the pressure off. But because this government has been very conscious of perception and image, and even then they decided to dig in their heels just as much as Akbar did. So they did decide to brazen it out. This wasn't their first reaction. This came after 10 long days.
Yes, it's shocking that Prime Minister Modi is yet to speak on this issue, and the BJP president hasn't spoken except to say very vaguely that we'll conduct an inquiry. The spokespersons have been silent. The only exception, I would say, and we must give credit to her, was Smriti Irani, who I think came up with a statement. And the other parties, barring the left, I think, were very slow in reacting to it. But But the real point is the moment Akbar tried to dig in and take the offensive against the women, he thought Priya Ramani was a soft target. She responded bravely. But the moment it happened, my reaction was, this is a good thing for the movement. Had Akbar gone quietly, it would have been quite different. So I think I would. I think in this state, this kind of expectation was right. Knew that there was no way Akbar could survive the storm that was going to break over the whole issue. But Akbar's reaction, I think, helped the movement enormously in that those who are level charges are now being put on the dock. They're being a criminal defamation case. They're a very obnoxious law, an unjust law, an outdated law, which you must get rid of. Has been, we're going to face that. And it's wonderful to see 20 women
Mr.
saying we'll
Ram,
come and testify in support of Priya. And I think I fully agree with Yogendra Yadav. This is a very significant victory. This is going to have, but you need to sustain the movement.
this
That's
is a
the real
significant.
issue.
Absolutely. This can't be, the steam can't be let off, and this movement, it may not be the logical end just yet. This movement has to carry on because, like Mr. Yadav said, MJ Akbar is just the tip of the iceberg. But Yogendra Yadav, very quickly then, in terms of political damage, and this government is very conscious of everything that moves and every political damage that's done, he could not have stayed in office without the blessings of both the Prime Minister and Amit Shah. Did they finally realize the extent of damage that was being caused? Because his position was not just untenable, it was indefensible as well, and they couldn't brazen it out any further. I'm just trying to understand what triggered, why was it important today and not yesterday for him to resign? Because, you know, this whole bravado about that brazen case that he filed against Priya Ramani, what changed between all of these days? Why was it done today?
I would probably turn to journalists like you to ask this question. Maybe Mr. Ram knows it better. But one thing is absolutely clear. They tried to brazen it out. When he came back, number one, he was allowed to continue his foreign visit. He goes to one more country as India's representative when he was facing these charges. He comes back. There are all kinds of rumors that he would be asked to step down immediately. No, he's allowed to continue. So clearly someone at the top gave him blessings and said, all right, hota hai, aurtein kehti hain, doesn't matter. And it is only when women hit back, and the point made by Mr. Enram, it's only when they stand up to him and the number starts growing. This morning you realize that more and more women who had not testified earlier are now willing to say, we shall go public, we will give evidence against him. This, I think, has shaken the government somewhat. Close to the election, they clearly do not want to be seen as anti-women government. So for the most discerning, the message was clear, but for the less discerning, they still may be able to save face.
I'm not so sure about that, Mr. Yadav. This narrative has been going on for 10 long days. I don't know how many people can you deliver the message that you were pro-women, and which is why you kept Mr. Akbar in your Council of Ministers for so long. So I'm not in the camp that believes that they can contain the damage that has been caused. But let me take this across to Neerja Chaudhary, because as soon as we got news of his ouster, very quickly the spin story also began to come in that he has been ousted at the behest of the PMO. It is the PMO that intervened. Now that intervention, Neerja Chaudhary, could have come any time in the last 10 days. It clearly did not. The timing is obviously linked to the growing seriousness of allegations that were passing, and perhaps also linked to the fact that there were now male journalists who were coming out and were willing to testify to what was really happening before their own eyes. So this whole PMO intervention doesn't quite cut ice with me. Does it cut ice with you?
I think, had they acted on day one and ensured that Mr. Akbar quit, then it would have shown that this government had zero tolerance towards sexual intimidation at workplace. But that is not the way it happened. The government distanced itself, if you remember the words used, distanced itself from Mr. Akbar. But by allowing him to continue as minister in those days, it was going to let him be in power and slap on a defamation case against one of the complainants. And not only one of them, not all of them. And I think as the pressure began to mount and they realized that this was going to escalate and not die down, then I think worry would have been there. After all, they are going to face elections. And you know, I was saying to somebody yesterday, it is early days yet, but the way the women are saying enough is enough, it could have actually altered the rules of political engagement in the coming months. And that would have, I think, worried those in government, maybe including the Prime Minister. But yes, it was disappointing that Times of India, Hindustan Times, Business Standard, many other organizations whose members face similar allegations, though not by 20 women, they had these people step down pending an inquiry. But the largest organization in the country, the government of India, was found wanting as far as this was concerned.
Absolutely. And unlike all these people in the organizations that you name, and mine included, and we've taken serious action here, I think unlike all of that, there are all private citizens at the end of the day. A minister is not a private citizen. He is there for public property. Public morality has to be held very high. But Neerja Chaudhary, if I may quickly ask you a follow-up question, what did you mean by saying terms of political engagement would have had to change?
If the women's issue, and you remember this is about sexual harassment, sexual intimidation at the hands of the very people who are supposed to protect you, safeguard your interests, train you, encourage you. They are the ones who try and extract sexual favors in order for you to be able to work, which was the message coming out from woman after woman. Then that is something I don't know whether people are going to take to it kindly. At a wider level. I think this has just begun. I don't know how this is going to pan out, because I'm also concerned about the potential of for misuse of this Me Too, because you can always get people making allegations against political opponents. You can always get somebody venting, their grievances. But those are issues we'll have to deal with. Those are safeguards we will have to put in place. This can be misused. That doesn't mean that women should continue to suffer in silence.
I think you make an important point there. You make a very important point that this could be liable to be misused, and we've got to add a filter there that this should not be misused. But for one misuse, if there are 5 genuine cases coming out, you know what, I'm putting my hand out there and saying, so be it. But Mr. Enram, how does this change the case that he has filed, a criminal defamation lawsuit? It's after all him in his personal capacity now that he says he's going to contest it, and not the might of the union government behind this one now. Though, of course, I mean, let me just for the benefit of viewers say, he's resigned as a minister. He continues to be a member of parliament, and an MP in India is an extremely powerful man as well.
Yeah, we'll have to see who foots the bill, whether the government or any establishment is backing this, because it's going to be expensive for him as well with all those lawyers. But I think there's another issue here, is that this is an unjust law, and it's been used in it's an obnoxious law. We've been campaigning for years, even decades, that do away with the law of criminal defamation. It should be just civil defamation. Many countries have done it. But our Supreme Court, I think, came up with a disappointing order, a 2-member bench. And I hope that we'll be able to take this matter up before a constitution bench. But this use of this obnoxious law against those who had allegations of serious sexual harassment, crossing all boundaries that can be tolerated in the workplace, it used to intimidate and even punish and put sort of hardship, anxiety. Many years come forward.
I think I'm losing that line with you. Can we reconnect? Okay. We'll have to reconnect that line with you. Can we do that? Because I think I'm losing out some of the words that he's saying. But Mr. Yadav, I'll come to you. Will this ouster also mean that the name and shame and the name and tell that's happening so far is going to move to the legal landscape? And this is just one high-profile exit which represents an icon's fall from grace, so to say. But action now does move to the legal front, and in many ways, all eyes on our legal system to deliver justice. And do we run the risk of being caught in this quagmire of what evidence is available, what is admissible, what is just mere narration, her word versus mine? I mean, at the end of the day, justice will be delivered if people are taken to task. Is this going to result?
At the risk of disagreeing, let me really say, I hope it doesn't do so. I hope it doesn't go in the last instance to the court of law, because court of law can do only this much. Remember, law comes in the last instance. Law addresses absolute minimal violations of decency, and law has very, very high boundaries of proof. And therefore, if you look at 20 such cases which may have come to light in the last 10 days or so, I doubt if only more than one or two can actually pass the test of law, which is not to say they are not true. So there is ethics and there is law. And let us not reduce all kinds of ethical violations only to law. And to my mind, the major achievement of Me Too in India in the last 10 days has been that it has opened a forum for discussions of right and wrong without reducing them only to legal infringements. And yes, as Nirja ji correctly points out, this opens up a possibility of misuse. But what I have witnessed in the last 10 days is almost an alternative responsible protocol being developed. For me, the important thing is, one, that these are not anonymous allegations. These women have come out, have taken personal risk, and have named themselves. Two, their accounts are so detailed, the pain speaks. You read it and you know this cannot be untrue. And three, in every single case, there is some corroborative evidence. Four, there is a space for the person being accused to respond. And in a couple of cases, people have given very strong responses and have come out clear. So it's not a lynch mob. For me, all this is very important in developing an alternate protocol. But let us please not use expressions like, in the last instance, it has to be done by courts. The logical culmination is courts. No, in any society, logical culmination for ethics need not be courts. For me, naming, shaming, and taming is vital. That is central. Maybe 5% of these cases will go to court, but 95% cases are all about taking away the veneer of respectability from these people. Whether they are punished by a court of law, I couldn't care less. But today, people like me can stand and say, Mr. Akbar
agree with you
is
there.
A predator.
Yes.
That's important, more than what may happen in a court in 10 years from now.
That's important. And I think the larger point, yes, and I think the larger and the more important point that you made was just a while back when you said these are not anonymous complaints. These are coming from women. And trust me, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of guts. It really requires a bone of steel in you to come out there and relive your horror. And some of them have relived their horror after so many years. It's fine by a lot of people to turn around and say, why after so long? Well, there is strength in numbers. So when you see people coming out, you feel the strength, you can do that too. But Nirja Chaudhary, will this help create awareness and make organizations more conscious of how women are treated at work? You know, so far this whole sexual harassment thing has always been, in some sense, brushed under the carpet. It has never been taken up. Is this now going to at least be a point of discussion? And is this going to make men more conscious of how they behave with women publicly and in offices?
I think yes, I hope that it will create a climate of restraint, which is far more important a change than any law, than a change that a law can bring about. So yes, that. And I think we must recognize that just as the Nirbhaya case had brought about very fundamental changes in our society, insofar as rape victims were ostracized, stigmatized generally, and even continue to be so, but Nirbhaya became the icon of the nation. So there was sympathy, there was support for her. Many women came out and gave voice to what they had gone through. So also with these women, this silence about sexual harassment has gone. It's been broken, it's been shattered. And today, women in the regional papers, and this may be a very rampant kind of thing that we all suspect, if they want to come out and speak up, women in smaller towns, they want to come out and speak up, they will know, they will have others standing by them, they will have lawyers fighting their case. So this silence that you suffer quietly or you fight your own battles alone, that I think has gone, and that is another milestone moment for the women's movement in India.
Yes, it's a huge achievement. You know, the fear, the secrecy around it, the kind of intimidation around it. Mr. Ram, do you agree that in some sense sexual harassment, which is always kept under wraps, which is always this thing that one should not speak about? In fact, even when women came forward and put forward their sexual harassment complaints, questions were asked, why did you go alone with him? Why did you have this drink with him? Why did you wear what you did? The questions were always leveled against women. I'm sure this is not going to dramatically change the situation, but is this the beginning of change, that at least her complaint, at least her grouse will be taken on account, and she is not going to be questioned, she is not going to be someone who's going to be put in the dock to prove it. It's going to be the man to prove his innocence.
Yes, I think certainly this is a very good start. It's a powerful start. And the moment Akbar dug in, I felt that this is a very good opportunity. Had he gone quietly, the issue may have died down after 10 or 15 days. But the fact that he took it on, tried to go after these women, question their integrity, their truthfulness, showing no remorse of any kind, I think that set it up very advantageously for the movement. And I think they've shown a lot of courage. The other point I like particularly was the point made by Yogendra Yadav about reputation, shaming, question of honor and so on. That's very important. But the other point is the justice system will be on test, because let us realize that these women have already suffered. They've already paid a heavy price, and a lot of people still don't get it and say, why didn't they come out at once or so within 3 months, as laid down in the Act, the 2013 Act. You've got to make a written complaint to the Internal Complaints Committee, the ICC, and so on, extendable by another 3 months. They still don't get it. But I think let's see how the law, justice system deals with this issue. It's an obnoxious law, the law of criminal defamation. And I welcome the fact that there's now an opportunity to take this head on. A, the atrocious offense taken by MJ Akbar, and B, the law itself, which is intrinsically loaded against.
And there, Mr. Ram, okay. No, fair point. Very quickly, Yogendra Yadav, a quick last word to you. And I'm going to ask a more uncomfortable and, if I may say, an unpopular question. Because with this ouster, in many ways, it is a watershed moment. You know, to get a union minister to resign on the back of social media narrative, and one that really did catch the fancy of the country, I think it's a very, very important watershed moment in the country. But do you believe this is going to now push us in the direction where there could be perhaps clamor for procedural fairness, something that we've talked about earlier, you know, public expose versus processes to be followed? Do you believe we now run the risk, or the full course will now be run where that clamor is also going to heighten? Mr. Yadav?
I really hope we go forward in that direction. One, as I said, alternative protocols need to be developed. There is already in incipient stage. We can move forward. I really hope the focus will now shift from film industry and media to other arenas: politics, business, corporate life, education, and above all, the unorganized sector, which is where sexual exploitation is rampant. And I do hope we would move away from metros to small towns and to villages, and will have the courage to speak about what happens inside the four walls of a home. This is where sexual exploitation takes place. So I really hope, as Mr. Ram said, this is just a start, that it should go forward. And one of the ways of going forward is to develop alternate protocols of truth covery, as I call it, of responsibility, of public expose, which is fair, which need not follow the high standards of law, but which is fair. That's very important, and I do see this movement moving in that direction.
I'm glad you see that movement moving in this direction. I think it's an extremely powerful movement. When that movement started, many eyebrows were raised, many questions were asked, some that have been answered through the course of this movement. But this is just the beginning. The logical end is not just the legal recourse that women and men who are accused will take. The logical end will be when workplaces become safer places of dignity and fairer places. Why should a woman who comes to work be sexually harassed, sexually exploited? She's there as good a professional as any other. And every man needs to remember that. But on that note, thank you very, very much, Mr. Yogendra Yadav, Mr. N. Ram, and of course, Neerja Chaudhary for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. We take a quick breather and we come back with the other story that's coming on women today. And that is Sabrimala. On the day of Ashtami, women journalists and many women who want to go to the temple have been attacked and evicted from their cars. Is that fair? Why is the rule of law not being respected? Back in a moment.